Awesome. Pleasure to welcome to the podcast Army starting goalie Sean Byrne. Sean, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate you letting me be here.
Absolutely. Well, we're doing this mid-season, so thank you for taking the time to make it happen amongst school and lacrosse and all the other stuff you got going on. I really appreciate it. So, I'd love to hear the story of when you first jumped into goal. You remember that?
Yes, sir. So I grew up in a non-traditional hotbed of lacrosse, and so I originally started out as a baseball catcher, and it kind of got boring and got slow, and I was like, oh, I want to go try something different. So made the switch over to lacrosse, and we were at practice one day. Our goalie couldn't show up. I was just playing like short stick, running around, didn't know what I was doing, and they were like, "Hey, like, can somebody step in cage today?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Like, I was a catcher. I'll try it out. And got there, and I honestly like didn't really enjoy it at first, but I understood that I was able to like help benefit the team. And after that practice, at one time, like I kind of learned that I was able to be successful at being a goalie, and so I just kind of stuck with it that way,
Mhm.
and just kept getting better and better. And as I got better, then I started to really love it more and really fell in love with playing the position.
Yeah. Did your team like whenever you made saves when you first started, were they like really like getting your back and like really getting hyped?
Yes, and I feel like now, especially in college, that's like such a huge part of it, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
a save is something that um, should be celebrated by your teammates, and that's something I feel like we do really, really well here. Is we celebrate the little plays, and that's not just a save, but that's kind of all over the field. And I feel like that's something that our team does really, really well, and something our coaches really like harp on is celebrating each other and celebrating, what people are doing on the field because
Yeah.
it's really the small plays that make the difference in games.
Yeah, I
So
want to talk about that, but just to close out that point. So when I first started playing goalie, like our team needed a backup, and so I did it. And I was like you, like I didn't love it right away. But what I did love was just like this fact that every time I did make a save, like everyone was just like, way to go, damn it. Like they were just getting my back. And like that made me feel really good, even though I wasn't making a lot of saves. Like
yes, sir.
even if it hit me in the head, like or just hit my stick and I didn't move, like they
Yes,
would
sir.
get really get my back. And that feeling was like, all right, yeah, I want more of this. Now let me try and like work. And then I eventually fell in love with the position. But like you, I didn't like it right away.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's addicting. And I think the more you play, the more it goes on, the more
Yeah.
valuable those saves become. And I think that's what keeps bringing you back and like why you want to keep getting better.
Yeah. Yeah, and then to your point about your team celebrating the little plays, I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome. Like it's so easy to like celebrate that step down crank shot that goes bar down. So easy to celebrate that one, but like do you celebrate like, a perfect approach on the hands and then he passes it away? And it's just like such a little subtle thing, but like as a goalie, if you're giving your defenders hype for that play, right? You're gonna start to build that trust and that camaraderie.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. That's cool. So how did then in Georgia, how did you go about learning how to make saves?
Yes, sir. So I think a lot of that fear of just like getting or like seeing a shot or getting past the fear of seeing a ball come at you, a lot of that kind of came from being a catcher and like
Yeah.
being taught to like frame a pitch or just get your body behind it on a block. But specifically with playing the position, I had a goalie coach in high school. His name was Coach Madish. He played, and he really was like the first person that kind of taught me the right like stance and
Mm.
the right things to do. Really just make me foundationally strong at being a goalie because like the South, like we don't have that much exposure and the kind of coaches that like somebody up north would.
Hmm.
But him having experience, he was able to do that for me. And then, honestly, a lot of like taking the next step was through like Goalie Smith.
Oh,
I've done
nice.
several camps with them. Uh, I still talk to Coach Mike about film and whatnot today. So they're a big part of it, and they helped me get to where I am today here.
Yeah, love it. Well, you guys are turning Georgia into a hotbed, at least for goalies anyway. You got Anderson Moore, yourself. I think there's a couple other goalies coming
Yes,
out
sir.
of Georgia who are performing really well. So it's awesome to see like, the non-hotbeds of lacrosse represent, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Talk to me about then training with goalie Smith. So what, if you had to like identify something that they taught you that really helped you or just I don't know, a mindset or like some way of looking at the game, what anything come to mind?
Yes, sir. I think the two biggest ones are one, obviously, you're going to get scored on. And I think growing up and learning about the game, like you try and become as like perfectionist as possible. Like you try to be really, really perfect. And I think understanding that you're going to get scored on and being able to accept that and just move on and maintain like that positive mental state is such
Mhm.
a big thing. And that's something that they've harped on. And then two, they say it all the time, but just like read them and beat them inside. Um,
Yeah.
kind of understanding that like if you can take away a few of those shots that you're not supposed to save, then like that is huge and really benefiting to your team. And so it's almost to the point where like you'd rather educated guess and be wrong
Yeah.
than like do that a couple times and still make a save or two that you might not like you're not supposed to have rather than just trying to rely on reaction time from within of 8 yards, and you're probably not going to make a lot of those saves if you're relying just on reaction time. So that philosophy of like read them and beat them and trying to steal a couple really got me from like a decent goalie to a pretty good goalie.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's one I stole from them and I use it all the time in my coaching. It's so good. On those
Mm-hmm.
inside shots, you got to read them and beat them. If there's a youngster listening to this, young goalie, and they say, "Well, like, how do I read a shooter?" Like, I don't get that. How would you explain, what am I looking for and how to read a shooter?
Yes, sir. I think the biggest thing is understanding shooting tendencies. And I think one of the biggest things that a goalie can do as a whole is honestly shoot, like go out and shoot. I feel like a lot of times goalies get so caught up in playing the position and trying to play it right, and they kind of forget about everything else that goes on with being a goalie, right? Like
Mhm.
when you see shots, you watch college lacrosse, you see all these high level shooters, and you just go and take reps with them. That's when you start to see tendencies. You start to understand what they're working on, how they might use a deception with their shoulders or their head or whatnot. And so I feel like you understand that, then you can understand how to make more saves.
Mhm.
And that's something that I've definitely tried to do. And I talked to like our guys about like what they're trying to do on finishes or something that
Yeah.
they're working on with shots. But I feel like the more you understand about how a shooter functions and what they can do, the better you can be as a goalie.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And then just like as you're shooting as a goalie, like pay attention to like what's going on. I think say specifically to me, it's a lot of it's in the shoulders.
Yes, sir.
Like where the shoulders are pointing, right? And what they look like on a low shot versus like a high shot.
Mhm.
I think a lot of that can help you then read the shooter. And then, yeah,
Yes,
once
sir.
you get to the college level, like shooters they can get deceptive with it. Like, you've seen CJ Kirst do the move where he sort of fakes down like he's going to shoot low, right, with his shoulders and then rips it high. A lot of
Yes, sir.
times at the youth level, if they do that, like, okay, you got me. Like, you're better off just reading it and beating them and trying to steal one, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Awesome. Second, interestingly enough, back-to-back podcasts with baseball catchers. So I just interviewed the Rutgers goalie. I don't know if you know Carden Stoller. He works with Goalie Smith as well. Have you met him?
We fortunate enough to play against them earlier this year.
That's
We
right.
both had a pretty good game, so I talked to him a little bit after that game. But that was really like the first time I've gotten to like talk to him.
Yeah, yeah. So he's also same story as you, and I feel like we were talking about. I feel like one of the main benefits of being a catcher is just getting used to those balls flying at you, right? Because when you're a youth and you first start out, I know for me, anyways, like I was so scared of the ball. Like the first move was like in like this, as opposed to like attacking it. And I imagine as a catcher, like a lot of that was you're already used to projectiles coming at you. Is that true?
Yes, sir. I definitely say so. I think the
Yeah.
biggest thing with being a catcher is it's getting over that fear of like having something come at you,
Yeah.
uh, and understanding that like you have to put your body on the line to like block a bad pitch or, um, maybe that like foul tip that comes back and you get hit. Like that's part of it, and I think it translates really, really well to lacrosse because it's the same idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Anything else? Do you think the framing has anything to do with being a goalie or not really?
Uh, I'd say partially. I think obviously just like, catching a ball with your hand, it's a little bit different than having a stick. But I think just kind of that mentality of like seeing you make a save or seeing you catch the ball, like that hand-eye coordination and just that
Hmm.
visualization of seeing you like stick a pitch.
Right.
I think that kind of goes hand in hand with being a goalie. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you on that one. What would you say is your favorite part about being the goalie?
Yeah. It's kind of a love-hate relationship with this one. Because favorite part, right? Like when you're doing successful, you can kind of control and dictate a game with the help of your defense and your team, and you it can be very, very rewarding. But when things maybe aren't going your way, you're getting a couple pieces of things they're happen to creep in, and just maybe that day you're not seeing it that well, you kind of feel isolated. You feel like you're on your own. You feel like there's really not a whole lot you can do. And so sometimes, when things are high, they're high, you feel good.
Hmm.
And when things are low, it's kind of that vice versa. And you feel like everybody's looking at you.
Yeah.
And so that it's kind of this love hate relationship of success and failure.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's like we have the spotlight on us, and like when you're doing really well, that spotlight's awesome, right? Because it shine and brightens up what you're doing. But obviously, when you're not doing well, then it's everyone's looking at you.
So
What do you do in those moments? I'm sure you've had them in your career, like when you have a bad game or you have a bad stretch of games and you're not playing that well. What kind of how do you get out of it?
yeah, I think the biggest thing is trying to maintain like a positive mindset and trying to find something that allows you to just kind of reset. Um, for me personally, I'm not a very like emotion filled goalie. I'm very like relaxed and reserved, and
Hmm.
um, I feel like the more calm and simplistic I can make the game, the better. And so for me, when I get scored on, my mental reset is honestly just turning around to pick up the ball and hand it back to the ref. Like I see goalies sometimes they'll like not pick up the ball, they'll just throw it to the side, make the ref pick it up, or they'll just like smack it out of the cage, things like that. And I feel like if you have kind of that routine or something that allows you to reset, and for me, it's just like handing it back to the ref, um, that's kind of how I've allowed myself to like look past giving those ones up that I maybe shouldn't have.
Hmm.
Um, and then in terms of like getting out of a slump or getting out of kind of a continuous sequence of like not really playing that well, I think it really comes down to just falling back to what has worked previously. Um, when things aren't going well, it's when you start to question and you start to try and figure out things that may not work, things that aren't going well. And I think
Hmm.
whenever you fall back on the things that have made you successful, whether it's like a steady stance or the way you hold your hands,
Right.
um, falling back on the things that have worked and made you successful and made you get to the point where you are, those are the things that keep you coming back. And you got to be able to like differentiate, right? And not get so caught up in what's going wrong and just focus on the things that have always kind of been like old and reliable for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like I've seen goalies where and talk to goalies where, they'll just like something will go wrong in the first quarter and then like in the second quarter or the second half, they just sort of like abandon their technique, right? Maybe they never flop. Now in the second half, like they're flopping on low shots, or maybe they never play a high arc, and on the second half they're like, I'm going to play a high arc. That's not like where they are. They just kind of panic because things are not going well. And you know what you're saying is, I mean, stick to those roots, like stick to what got you there, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, love it. Um, Growing up, did you watch a lot of college lacrosse or pro lacrosse? Who were the guys that you kind of like to watch and learn from?
Yeah. I started to a little bit later. I started playing like fifth grade, sixth grade, and I didn't really pay that much attention to it until probably eighth grade. But I feel like I always watched John Galloway.
Oh yeah.
Um, and growing up, like I always thought Syracuse was really, really cool. And then I feel like the thing I learned from him the most was honestly kind of the opposite of how he played, right? Like he played this very like high energy, high tempo, um, like go get it kind of mindset. And like I tried that when I was little, and I thought that the more pumped up I could be, the better I would play. And I found that to actually be the opposite for me. I found out that the more calm, the more relaxed, the more settled I am, the more successful I am. So it's kind of weird, but sometimes trying these different things, trying things that you see other people do and they're successful at it, it might not always work for you. And that was kind of the case with me following him.
That's so interesting. And how did you discover that for yourself? Because I imagine you go out there and like, yeah, I'm going to get hyped at saves. I'm going to get really excited. And did it just not go good? And you're like, all right, I'm going to try the opposite. Or like, how did you discover that being that calm, steady goalie was better for you?
Yeah. Um, I kind of learned that I was like jumpy and I was very, I started to like guess more. I started to
Mm,
kind of like lean certain ways. I put too much weight on one leg,
hmm
stuff like that, stuff that got me out of that like firm stance, kind of how I play. And ultimately, it just took a bunch of trial and error. Like I kept trying things. I change up one thing, one practice, and then eventually it just came to like, hey, I'm going to go out there and play and
mm,
forget about what I'm trying to do or what I'm trying to change. I'm just going to go out there and play. And I
yeah.
found out that when I did that, I wasn't thinking about what I was doing. I was just kind of relying on my ability and relying on all of what I talked about like what works for me.
hmm
And that came to be just like a more calm, relaxed mental state.
Beauty. Love it. One of the things I learned from Galloway was his hops or the pre-shot hop, you know, where you kind of like
Mhm.
pad the feet, reset the feet. Is that something you do?
I wouldn't say hops is my way of doing it.
Hmm
Um, I'm more of a like wide stance and I try and use my size on like lower ankle stuff. Um, I wouldn't say I really use hops. I'm more of like I'd rather be set in the wrong place
Yep.
than I am not set at all.
Yep.
So like I feel like positioning and everything is honestly the biggest part of playing goalie. And so I know like his hop was his reset and
Yep.
kind of his way of being in the right position. But I feel like being set and being out of position is honestly better.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, I'm a big fan. I used it. I don't have the big frame and yeah, I mean I was always just like right before the shot. And I think a lot of it came from playing infield or in baseball and just kind of that same idea of like the prep step, you know, where you kind of get ready to explode in either direction. But so many different ways to play this position, which is cool.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned using your size on those inside shots. Talk to me more about that. How does that work? And if there's a big goalie, like how do you kind of coach them to use that size and those angles on those inside or low angle shots?
Yeah. I think understanding where you're at and your positioning is huge. So I'm 6'3", so I know that when I stand up, I'm pretty much covering all of the cage. Now I do play a little bit wider stance, and I tend to kind of skinny that stance a little bit on lower angle stuff
Hmm.
and um, things maybe going down the alley. And because of that, I then am bringing my legs back inside of the cage. Um, a lot of times, like bigger kids, they'll get out of position and they maybe have something covering part of the like covering outside of the cage. And so teaching a bigger kid through positioning and just understanding where they're at is like the biggest part of that. Because as much as they can fill up the cage, the better.
Yeah. Without going beyond it, right? That's kind of what
Mhm.
we're saying. Like if you have that wide base, well, when they come down the angle, like the goal gets a lot smaller. And so if my feet are outside the frames of the goal from the shooter's perspective, then it's just wasted goalie, right?
Yeah,
Right? You might as well
exactly,
put up. You want them to get. You basically want to get them post to post. So like every shot that's on the goal is on my frame, and I can just really make a save almost without stepping.
exactly.
But then you still do step laterally to make that save on those low angle ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, growing up, you hear the whole like, oh, step 45 degree and step, um, to the ball. But that's just not really the case anymore. The positions evolved, the sports evolved. The shooters are too good.
Yeah.
Uh, so I play a very like flat arc until it's time to kind of make myself bigger on a low angle.
Hmm.
But yes, I step very horizontally.
Yep.
That way, I'm giving myself as much time as possible to get to the ball.
Yep.
My freshman year, I played a lot around my like stance and high arc and that kind of thing. And I found that when I played a high arc, I found myself getting out of position and I found myself um, just getting beat by speed because I had a yard or 2 yards less to react to the ball.
Hmm.
That now I play a lot flatter, more in the cage, really using like pipes to tell where I'm at. And I've given myself a yard or two more yards. And I feel like it's been a huge like advantage for me.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, yeah. I was going to ask you how your goalie game has developed, and so yeah, I mean, I guess going way back, we were all taught, step at the 45, attack the
Mhm.
ball, and there's a lot of videos of me coaching it that way, that I did some years ago, and you're right. Now it's like it's the lateral steps, just because shooters are so much stronger. Like the sticks have gotten just so awesome in terms of their ability to shoot, and people can sting corners. And yeah, I mean, just there's no reason to go out at it. Like just get in front of it via the lateral step. I think.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Completely
Anything
agree.
else come to mind? So in terms of how your game has switched. I mean, I guess you talked about the arc play. Anything else come to mind, or is that kind of the two big things?
Yeah. I'd say the other thing is just being an athlete outside of being a goalie, right?
Mm,
Like I feel
yeah.
like a lot of times the modern day goalie gets so caught up in just being a goalie, but you're also a defender. Like being able to play around the crease, whether that's picking off passes or maybe a loose GB, um, taking pride in your clears and taking pride in your ability to pass a ball. Like I feel like that's such a big part, and I feel like that's something that has allowed me to like differentiate myself from other kids in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I mean, just being like you said, being an athlete and winning ground balls around the crease and picking off passes and being an asset in the clearing game. I mean, I think those are all part of the modern goalie, right? And that's
Mhm.
you got to have that as a part of your game if you want to be an elite goalie. Awesome. Um, let's see. So talk to me then about sort of your recruiting process and kind of your decision to attend Army, West
Yes,
Point.
sir. So I was fortunate enough to play on a really successful Thunder team. Um, Evan Plunkett, he was one of my summer ball uh, like buddies. We played pretty much all through summer ball together, and then we were lucky enough to both get recruited to come play here. And so that was really really cool. But the recruiting process coming out of Georgia was a little bit different, right? Because when you live up in the north and all the schools are in the north, it's easy to like schedule visits and
Right.
find a time that works for, like a day visit, whatever. But being from the south, right, like it was a little bit longer process for me, and I honestly started to kind of get stressed out with how long it took. Because you saw some kids go, like they commit in a few days, or even that first day, September 1st. Like I was a class of 21, so I was the first class that had that recruiting rule. But you see schools start to fill up, you see goalie slots start to go. And for me, it was really kind of a matter of time, and I had to take a little bit longer because it took time to schedule those visits and find weekends that worked. Fortunate enough, you know, Army stayed with me, and they stayed. Um, they were really like passionate about their players, right? Like
Hmm.
whenever they want somebody, they made it clear. And that was something that I felt like our coaching staff does a really good job about, is that like they show true meaning to their players, and it doesn't seem like a lie, and it doesn't seem like they're just trying to get you as like a part of business, right? Like
Hmm.
it's a family here, and that's something that they've always preached. And that was something that really drew me to this place. And then just the team itself, right? Like I was around the guys for a couple hours, and I just felt like I fit in. And so once I got here, it was kind of a no brainer. And after that visit, I was fortunate enough to get that offer, and there's really nowhere else I could have saw myself playing.
Nice. Nice. Well, congrats on that, and thank you for your service to our country as well. I imagine the Army and all the service academies for that matter, but they attract a certain type of player, a certain quality of player, talk to me about that. I mean, is that, I guess that's true, right? What would you say you and your teammates have in common?
Yeah. Um, I'd say it's more geared towards the kid that is willing to work hard and maybe doesn't have um, like the 5-star ranking or the stick skills,
Mm-hmm.
the crazy stick skills. I think it's more geared towards the kids that really just want to work hard and enjoy playing the game,
Mm-hmm.
and they find pride in making themselves better and kind of going through the tough scenarios to get better on the other side of it. And I feel like that's kind of how we win games, right? We're maybe not the most skilled team. We're not doing all the flashy plays. We're just going to outwork you and kind of out toughness you, whether that's through ground balls or riding or, whatever it is. Um, we kind of want it more than anybody else. And I feel like that's why we've become a successful program.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like that a lot. And that kind of goes back to that very first thing we said of like celebrating those little plays, right? The ground ball hustle play, right? And when you got a team and a team culture that celebrates that, and like, every kid's going for that, then like you're gonna do pretty well. So
So
that's awesome. And I've had the pleasure to interview a couple Army goalies who I think you're familiar with, Matt Chess and Knox. Who did you played with both those guys?
yes, sir. I was a
Yeah,
freshman with Knox, and then obviously me and Matt last year.
right, right. Talk to me about playing with those guys, and if there's anything you kind of learn from them.
Yeah. Um, I think Knox is probably the best example of toughness that it is.
Oh yeah,
And he showed me that in so many ways. Like, we've all seen the play of him getting hurt behind the cage, and Loyola running back to the cage, makes a diving save, his helmet comes flying off. But I don't think that's the whole story. You see him 2 games later, 2 weeks later, he's wearing a brace, and he's back on the field with could have been season-ending leg injury,
right.
and he's playing his best lacrosse. Like he was better after he had got injured, and I think that just shows his character, how much he wanted to win, because he was able to just forget about everything that happened. And it was
Hmm.
like, I'm here for this team. I'm bought into this season, this program, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to win. And that it was the thing I admired about him the most.
Yeah.
Um, and then with chess, uh,
Just real quick on that. So Knox, that save that you're referring to, best save I've ever seen in my life. Sorry about that. I was doing one of the save edits of him, and or not maybe not even of him, and they showed that play, and it was just like I watched it. I was like, whoa! Like he goes back behind the goal to kind of pick off a pass, tries to plant, and you just see his knee give out, and he's in pain on the ground for a second, and then he realizes like the play's still going on, gets back up, and like gets in front of the goal, dives in front of the goal, Superman style, makes the save. Helmet comes flying off, and is unbelievable, unreal save.
yeah,
Anyway, sorry, Matt Chess.
yeah. Matt was honestly my best friend last year on the team, and it was the thing I respect about him the most is just how selfless he was. Like,
Hmm.
um, me and him competed. We pushed each other. We kept making each other better. And I had to take a step back and be his backup for 8 games, and then ultimately the coaches made the decision to switch us, and then he was the best teammate possible
Hmm.
at all times and
Yeah.
supported me through the rest of the season. And I'm forever in debt to him. And I'm so thankful for what he gave me and how much he supported me through that moment. And I know it was hard. And I know that, your senior year, you're playing and now you have to sit and watch somebody else play. Like, I know that's not easy.
Right.
And I wish we could, you know, go back and that not be the case. But the man that he was selfless. He never skipped a beat in practice. He came and provided every single day for this team. And I think that shows the man that he was, his character, and really just also how much he wanted to win, right? Like he was willing to do whatever it takes for this team. And I think that's what made him a successful goalie as well.
Love that. Yeah. Yeah, I know him. I know him pretty well. He's been on the podcast. We've worked on some other projects together, and he's a great young man. And if anyone's listening, because I get a lot of questions about backup goalies and how to be a great backup goalie, and I think you just summarized it right there, right? It's just, you're always pushing that starter, and everyone knows that you want that role, right? I mean, if you didn't, then that would be weird. But like, just working as hard as you can, but also rooting on your teammate. Because at the end of the day, like you guys are on the same team, and like being a great teammate, I think is all about what being a great backup is. I don't know if you'd add anything else when it comes to being like a backup.
Yeah. I will say like it's hard and it's not easy to do. And
Right.
it definitely like I struggled with it for my freshman year. Um, because I didn't know what it was like. And I had to be put in that scenario where I had to learn and I had to understand that the team comes first before any
Mm.
individual success. And as I've gotten older here with school and been a part of this team, been a part of this program where that is preached, like we are we are more about this team and this culture and the guys in the locker room. And that's kind of what I've said in the past, right? Like, we'll just
Hmm.
outwork you. And
Hmm.
that's what makes us successful. But you have to learn and you have to um, continue to work on and master your craft because realistically, like one shot, two shot difference between you could be playing
Right.
or you could be not playing. Like, and you're an injury away, you're one shot, you're one broken thumb away from potentially playing. So you owe it to your team to be the best version of yourself as a backup, just in case that moment presents itself.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Chess did. Um, when Knox got hurt, right? Like Knox was having an All American season. He goes down. Chess was prepared and ready.
Yep.
He had been working on his craft. He steps in for a game and a half. He wins us, two big games. And then ultimately Knox comes back and he finishes out his All American season. So
Yep.
if that doesn't show like how much Chess was bought into being a successful teammate, then I don't know what would.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned being struggling with that backup role. What specifically was it? Because I imagine there's a bunch of youth in that scenario who kind of have gone through that and feel that struggle. Was it for you just the idea that like, hey, I was a starter on my high school team, my club team, I'm just not used to it? Was it something else?
Yeah. I think being from Georgia, where it wasn't that big, I was able to have a lot of success in high school, and I'm very
Hmm.
blessed and fortunate for what God had given me in high school.
Hmm.
And I didn't know how to not really play.
Right.
Like that sounds kind of cocky, um, and I'm not trying to come off as that, but it took time to like it took time of being on the bench to learn how to be a team player,
Understood.
if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Understood. 100%. Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. Um, Well, now you got the starting role, and you guys are balling out this season. It's fun to watch, and you're putting up some awesome numbers. The Army defense is looking really good. I mean, is there like, you know, is it just a collection of that hard work and that attitude, or is there something different you guys are doing this year? Or what's going on this season?
Yes, sir. I think a lot of it is we've had guys that are really all American players that nobody really knows about.
Hmm.
Obviously AJ, it's been a 4 year starter, multiple time All American. It's pretty much shut down every single person he's played. John Sullivan is probably the most athletic kid on our team. Number 99, also a crazy eraser on the defense. Ryan Nixon was rotating in at LSM last year, and we bumped him down a close defense. And when you have three, honestly, number one poles that are able to play together as a unit, I feel like that's what's made us so successful. And then you add the second layer of that. Christian Fournier has literally been tearing it up every single game, but nobody knows who he is.
Hmm.
Christian Mazer, our number one D mid, gets up and down the field and nobody knows who he is. Keegan
Hmm.
Tracy, it's the same thing. Like I could list every single guy on our defense and I remember huge key plays that they've made in games, but nobody really knows who they are. And it just gets hidden. But these guys are all American players, every single one of them. And they honestly have provided me the opportunity to be successful.
Right.
And I'm so thankful for to them, and they've made my life really, really easy this year. And so having a great relationship with your defense is key, and being able to be a unit together instead of individual players trying to accomplish the same goal is huge.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what we've been able to do this year. It's just you know ride off of each other's highs and fill in wherever somebody needs it, be the slide, be the support that somebody needs. And I think that's what's making us a successful defense this year.
Love it. Love it. Well, I tell you what, you guys keep allowing 3 and 4 goals per game. I think those names are going to get out there.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned, the it's very important to have a great relationship with your defensemen. How, if I'm a young goalie and I don't have that, like how do I go about building that?
Yeah. Um, I mean, like I said, I think relationships are everything. And being able to build it it's tough. It's hard. because the position is so individualized. I think honestly, the best way to do it is just having uncomfortable conversations and being able to set your ego aside and tell them what you need from them, and then asking them what they need from you.
Hmm.
Um, and whenever you can have those tough conversations, that's when you like really learn about each other and you're able to um, set apart your differences. And that's where you start to be more supportive of each other and fill in the gaps of weaknesses or, um, and really riding off each other's strengths.
Yeah, love that. And I think as a goalie too, just really, you know, like when they make a great play, like you're the first guy there, giving them that pat on the butt, right, and be like, man, great play, you saved me on that one, right, and kind of showing that love, and to me, like that builds up trust and that builds up camaraderie, and defensemen want to play for a goalie like that.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah. What what qualities in a defenseman do you like in front of you?
Um,
Anything come to mind?
yeah,
I just did an event for defensemen, and got to talk to all these elite level defensemen like playing in the pros, and it was really cool. But I was just curious, when you think about like, great defensemen that you've played with, kind of if there's a qualities that come to mind.
yeah, I think self-sacrifice is probably the biggest one.
Yeah.
Um, and just guys that are willing to kind of put their body on the line
All
for
right.
a win. So whether that's like blocking a shot or diving to the end line to try and get, possession, or just honestly playing really, really tough physical defense to allow the goalie to see the shots that he wants to see. Um, that's kind of that like gritty mentality that our guys have embodied. I think the perfect example of this would probably be Eamon Murphy last year in the Army Navy game. You see him; he was our senior captain last year, and you see him full dive right in front of a shot, and he ends up it, like hits him in the hand. Ball goes out of bounds. We're able to maintain possession, but that kind of self-sacrifice and him being a senior captain in the biggest game of the year, like he's putting his body on the line
Mm-hmm.
to soak a shot. I think that's like what it takes to be successful.
Yep. Love it. Love to play with guys like that, right? Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the mental game. Obviously, so important for what we do as lacrosse goalies. I know I was talking with Knox, and he said, he kept mentioning this sports psychologist that you guys work with,
Yep.
Dr. Z. And then I went
Mm-hmm.
out and I interviewed Dr. Z for the podcast and got to speak with him, and he's awesome. Do you work with him? Have you had the chance to work with him at all?
Yes, sir. So I've met with him once or twice in the past, but he is no longer at West Point.
Oh, got it.
We now have Dr. Matt Gonzalez, who I meet with once a week regularly.
Hmm.
And he's honestly probably been half the reason that like I've been able to be successful.
Let's go. Yeah.
He's provided me with like so many outlooks. He honestly has dug me out of slumps himself. Um, he has kind of taught me how to result back to that foundation when things aren't going well. And um, him being a sports psych guy, like in psychology, there's like an optimal arousal level in which people can function and what works for them. And he was kind of a big part also recently of establishing the fact that like I'm more of a laid back, um, more relaxed kind of goalie.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was able to take one of his classes last semester as a psych major, and he taught psych of elite performance. And a lot of that class resulted in me taking stuff I learned in the classroom and applying it to being a goalie and being on the field, and helped me be successful. So
Oh, that's
really big,
incredible.
really big thanks to him because he's done a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. So are you a sports psych major, or just psychology?
I'm a organizational psychology major, so it's like leadership psych.
I love it. Love it.
So
Awesome. And then how did he how did he dig you out of the slump? Is it some of the things that you've already shared, or is there like other things that we should know about?
Yeah, definitely some of the things I've said. But I think the biggest thing is just having those conversations. Um, and when things aren't going well and going the way you want them to, being able to like sit down and have an honest, open conversation
Yeah,
with somebody goes a long way. Whether that's your
totally.
coach or a friend, maybe it's somebody on your defense. Um, like me and Coach Lewis, he's our goalie coach, and also has been a big part of like my success here recently. But like we've had multiple conversations that have led to us just walking out of it at the end of it, and we're both like, oh, that benefited both of us because
Yeah,
maybe he now knows where I'm at, what I'm dealing with, things that I need, and then I'm seeing his side of it and what he's expecting of me, and
yeah,
kind of the vice versa. So it goes a long way. I'm a firm believer in just like talking things out and having like really deep, meaningful conversations.
yeah. Love it. Love it. Yeah. And sometimes, just this pure act of like verbalizing what's on your mind, it kind of makes it like, say you're worrying about something, worrying about your performance or worrying about a game, and like you start talking it out and verbalizing it. And then you're like, wait a minute, like the fact that I just talked it through makes it sound so silly now that I've said it out loud, right? And
Yeah,
so I think
exactly.
I think there's power in that as well. But yeah, having someone you can trust, whether that be your mom or your dad or a sports psychologist or a coach or a teammate, and just talking it out. Because goalie can be a lonely position, right? If you're just kind of fighting these battles in your head, it can get tough, right? And so I like that. I like that what you said there about, yeah, just the fact that I could talk with somebody is, half the battle.
Yep,
Yeah.
completely agree.
All right. Any other like very specific lessons that you could share from him
Uh,
that might
I feel
benefit the youth goalies? If not, no worries. I was just curious.
um maybe not necessarily like lessons. I mean, there's been a bunch of like little things over time, but I will say one thing we're lucky enough to have that's been like a resource that's kind of been a part through the psychology program is we have like a mental training lab. And so sometimes I did it a lot in the fall, just as a way of like getting more reps, but they have like light reaction stuff
Oh
and like
yeah.
a board that you can like play games on with reaction time and hand quickness, and they have like tennis ball drills
Yeah.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So it's a resource that West Point has, and uh, I'm fortunate enough to be able to use it. But being able to do little drills outside of physically seeing shots goes a long way.
Yeah. Anything you can do to get better, right? And I really think those hand-eye, touching the lights and practicing that reaction time stuff, I really think that works. I really think it benefits your ability to react to a stimulus, react to a shot coming at you.
Mhm.
So yeah, take advantage of all the resources you got, right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, Sean, thank you so much for coming on. I know you got to run to practice pretty soon. I was going to ask a couple more questions. You got the number one on the jersey. How come you go with number one?
Yes, sir. So I actually wore 35 in high school, and I wore 99 when I was little, and those were like my dad's two favorite numbers. So that's why I wore those when I was little. And then when I got to college, um, I I could have worn 99. 35 wasn't available, and so I was like, oh, I kind of want to like do something different. Um, and I chose one, and a lot of it kind of originated just behind like there's one God, and like one God that we serve.
Hmm.
And now that I've been able to like see the lineage of one as a goalie position here, because there's been other goalies in the past that have had it, like George Slabowski. He was like a multiple time All American. But the lineage of the number here, it's really cool. And I hope that there's another goalie down the line that gets to wear number one, and just be a part of that here as well.
I like that. Keep the one in the crease.
Yeah.
Let's go. And then I saw a picture of you. You had WSC on the throat guard tape. I don't know if you still do that. But
Yes, sir.
what does that stand for?
Yes, sir. So I have WSC on one side and I have it says dad on the other. But so the WSC is a 2 week Christian camp that I grew up going to my entire life.
Cool.
It's owned by Chick-fil-A, and it's called Windshape Camps. So that's what the WSC stands for. And then on the other side it says dad, and the A is a green mental health ribbon, because my dad has had some issues with that in the past,
Hmm.
and he's still he's still around and he's doing really well. And I feel like that's a way of me, just like being thankful for everything that he sacrificed to help me get to where I am.
Hmm.
And uh, and I'm also hopefully bringing awareness to mental health.
Love
So
it. Love it. That's awesome that you're able to do that. Yeah. Very important thing, mental health, right? And if we can bring any awareness and kind of make it a easier thing to talk about, then that's awesome.
yes, sir.
How about your faith? I would love to hear about how you use that out on the field, if at all, how you use it to be a better goalie.
Yes, sir. Um, I think one of my biggest like pregame rituals pregame, I listen to the two of the same worship songs, and then I just like sit and pray for probably 15 minutes while I listen to those.
Mm,
Um, and I feel like that is so like rewarding, and it provides me peace. And I'm I feel like God has, he's presented me this opportunity and this gift to like be able to play at this level and at this place. And um it's I don't know, I'm very like grateful to be where I am. And it's really just because of what like God has given me and provided. So I just try and like use that as a way to find peace in the crazy situations of a game.
hmm.
And I feel like it has benefited that more relaxed version of me, because I find peace in that.
Love it. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for sharing everything on this podcast. It's been awesome to chat with you, Sean. What about the stick setup? What do you go with the wand?
Oh, right now I'm using a Maverick Hyperlite because we're a Maverick school, and then
Okay.
I use Warrior Nemesis 3 with Mesh Dynasty 12 Diamond.
Yeah,
Um,
the Nemi 3.
yeah,
I like it. I like it. There's like, have you used the new one, the
I,
QS?
I tried it.
They break.
Un-
They break
they break a
pretty gosh
lot.
darn quickly, huh?
I shrunk three, broke all three in a week, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go back to the Nemi 3, and
Yeah.
it's done me well. So
Yeah, yeah. I think they're going to come out with another one pretty soon because I think they're aware that there's some sort of, I don't know if it's the material or the design or something, but yeah, there's some
yeah,
sort of flaw going on, unfortunately. But Nemi 3. And then do you like when you grip the head, are you all the way up on the plastic, like way up high, or how do you do that with your top hand?
the Nemi has a very like short, stubby throat.
Okay.
So majorly no, but my top pointer finger is a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, just kind of like
It's right on
slightly.
the
Yeah.
side. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome, Sean. Well, thank you so much. Like I said, thank you for your service to our country. And if you had to leave the goalies out there with a final piece of advice, what would that be?
Yeah. Just keep playing. Um, you get so caught up in recruiting or bad games or things maybe not going your way. And I'm a firm believer in just keep playing, keep seeing shots, keep putting in the extra work, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, and that'll ultimately lead to success over time. And so I've stood by that one here for sure.
Love it. Go Army.
Yes, sir. Be Navy.